I'll be honest. Sometimes I get into arguments with progressive friends about what the current political movement requires. There are well-meaning folks passionate about social justice who think things have gotten so bad, the lines have been so starkly drawn, that we have to fight fire with fire. In fact, the more cynical people are about government, the angrier and more dispirited they are about the prospects for change, the more likely the powerful are able to maintain their power.
President Obama re-entering the campaign trail today in a big way and going after everyone, including progressives in his own party, of course, finding time to give himself a little bit of credit for this booming economy. We want to discuss it all right now with our panel. Beverly Hallberg, president of District Media Group, Danielle McLaughlin, a liberal commentator, and Jillian Melcher, Wall Street Journal editorial page writer. Let me start with you, Danielle, since the soundbite we used covered what I thought the first part of this was the rally the troops, push back against President Trump. But to me, the other part was, hey, the establishment is losing. I need to go in there and help the establishment. I mean, think about the things he said about progressives. Don't fight fire with fire. Don't make stuff up. Stop name calling. Find common ground. And you don't need a messiah. Hint, hint, Bernie Sanders. I mean, that was some pretty tough stuff from a Democrat to Democrats.
He might have actually been talking about himself as well. I think people see Obama sitting on the sidelines, hoping he's going to come back in and join the fight.
So the messiah came back and said, don't look for the messiah.
Pretty much. He's saying this needs to be good, hard-working, decent people that we put into government. This is not about an authoritarian. This is not about somebody who's going to collect power. This is about regular people.
But do you see him pushing back against the burning wing, which is gaining momentum?
I think what he wants to see is people coalescing within the Democratic Party, because if they're divided, there's no way that they're going to beat Republicans in November.
Jillian?
Well, I mean, it's a tricky thing, right? Because if we have some of the stuff like we've seen at the Kavanaugh hearings, I think that really gins up the base for Republicans. At the same time, I think that we've got to energize, the Democrats anyway, need to energize their base. So there is a temptation to go more extreme. I think it's a bit of a gamble. And I'm also really interested in the politics of Obama going out now. Keep in mind, when he has not been on the ticket, 2010, 2014, we saw the GOP gain. I think Trump's deciding to make this election a referendum on himself, and we know he does well when he has a political foil. Yes. We saw this with all the Republicans when he was giving them nicknames. We saw it with Hillary Clinton. And I think the temptation is going to be for Obama to put himself out there well enough so Trump can hit it.
Beverly, I was watching your tweets while this was going on, and you know, they were very interesting to say the least, because you saw some hypocrisy there, even though you're not a fan necessarily of President Trump's tweets or some of his actions. You saw the hypocrisy also today.
I think there's a lot of hypocrisy. And by the way, gone are the days where a former president remains quiet during a current administration. I think former President Obama's speech today made me miss those days. He did come out strong on what he called divisive rhetoric. He blamed Trump. He blamed Republicans for really the climate of discourse these days. But he doesn't seem to take any of the blame at all. Let's not forget he did talk about people with guns and religion, talked about them negatively. I think a lot of the reason why President Trump did get so much support, did win the White House, is because people under Obama's administration felt like they were left out. So Obama, to me, is very hypocritical in saying that divided language is only because of Trump or only because of Republicans.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when you start off your presidential run talking about people's guns and religion and them clinging to it, that's pretty offensive, isn't it, Danielle?
Absolutely it is. And actually he took responsibility for Democrats in the past having been the force of division. He talked specifically about Southern Democrats.
Were you
and their
surprised
role
by
not
that, by the way?
slavery.
Because when I talked to a lot of Democrats, and when you'd say, hey, you know what, Democrats were, the ones pushing slavery. It was a Republican, Abraham Lincoln. But not only that, throughout history, until very recently, you saw Republicans who were at the forefront, civil rights bills, for instance, that he didn't try to say that those were really not today's Republicans. He just gave Republicans credit for that. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Well, I don't think anybody's really going to argue with the idea that the party of Trump is not the party of Reagan, for example, or
Well, see, he didn't say that, though.
Bush.
He didn't say that. President Obama didn't take time out to say that. He just simply gave Republicans credit for slavery, for civil rights. I thought that was refreshing.
I thought it was great.
Yeah, Jillian?
Yeah, I mean, that certainly was refreshing. Look, I think the risk here is he's coming in with a really high approval rating. I think only JFK and Reagan are more liked, more respected as past presidents.
Could he
But
ruin that, though, by getting involved in a campaign?
Absolutely. It's a situation where absence has made the heart grow fonder. I think him going out there and reminding people what he stood for, just from a policy standpoint, the heavy regulation, the lack of economic opportunities that we saw because government was stifling it. I think that's something that may galvanize the GOP in a way he doesn't intend.
Yeah, of course. And also, Beverly, it was interesting that even though it felt like he was pushing back against the Bernie wing and the Bernie momentum, he might have adopted a few things, right? He talked about the fresh idea of Medicaid for all. He reiterated no student debt. It's $1.5 trillion. Maybe there's a magic way of getting all that done. So what's the ultimate message for Democrats? And after today's performance, do they want to see him doing this more often?
I think this could be actually detrimental for Democrats in the midterms. The reason why is, while it may get out the Democrat vote, they were already going to come out there and vote, but I think this actually makes Republicans want to get out there because they listen to Obama and they're like, hey, we don't want more of that. One of the areas that I think just shows why people don't want Obama is he was taking credit for the economy. And that is just ridiculous. Let's not forget, during his 8 years as president, he blamed Bush for the recession. Now he's taking credit for the economy. I think a lot of people see through a lot of his rhetoric. He is a smooth speaker. He is a good communicator. But when it comes to the substance, I actually don't think he does a lot to help the Democrats in the midterms.
Well, President Trump said he had a hard time staying up during the speech. So, ladies, thank you all very much. It was great seeing you.
It did not start with Donald Trump. He is a symptom, not the cause. He's just capitalizing on resentments that politicians have been fanning for years.
Resentments they've been fanning, or resentments of those politicians? That's my question. President Obama calling President Trump out by name and diving into the midterms in the 2018 election, looking to help Democrats regain some of their congressional seats. Ford McConnell, chair of the Civic Forum PAC, and Robin Bureau, a former regional field director for the Obama campaign, joins us now. Robin, do you think that's going to be effective?
I think he gave a very effective speech today. We needed his voice. Frankly, I'll be honest, I'm not seeing a whole lot of leadership from the Democratic Party itself. So he did a really good job today of attacking apathy and bringing out the point that only 1 in 5 young people voted in the last election. And polls still show that we have trouble as Democrats headed to the midterms with trying to turn out the young vote. And I was really glad to see that he laid out some cohesive, coherent issues because right now the party has 435 official platforms.
Yeah.
But you know what, though, Robin? Here's the thing, okay? You guys really only have one issue, and that is Donald Trump. And to be perfectly honest, Melissa, the Democrats are beyond fired up, okay? This could actually be a net positive for the Republicans because the problem in 2018 is staring the Republicans right in the face, and that is an enthusiasm gap. Take a look at one of the latest Fox News polls. You'll see that 76% of Clinton voters are certain that they're going to turn out in November. Only 67% of Trump voters are certain that they're going to turn out. That number needs to be more than, closer to even between the two parties if the Republicans are going to take back or hold the House.
But let me ask you both about the argument he was making, though, because when he talked about the ruling class and breaking the death grip that the ruling class has protecting its power in this country. And President Obama talked about himself as a step forward and President Trump as a step back. A lot of people who voted for President Trump hear what President Obama was saying and think, the ruling class that has a death grip are politicians in Washington, that elitists like President Obama are that ruling class that has a death grip, and the revolution was about people like them. Robin, I mean, do Democrats realize that half of America hears that talk and thinks of politicians in Washington and those elitists as the ruling class who have the death grip?
Melissa, yes, you just nailed it. And I want to be clear. The swamp is on both sides. We have a swamp in the Democratic Party ourselves that needs draining. I would love to see someone replace Nancy Pelosi as Speaker, for example. I think she's a masterful legislator, but we need a new voice because Republicans are doing a wonderful job of using her name very effectively to attack Democrats as being Pelosi Democrats, and it's working. So we really do have some issues on our side. Obama rightfully called the Democratic Party out on several of those today, and I was glad to hear it, Melissa.
Ford, what do you think?
Well, look, you have to understand that President Trump was swept into power precisely because of the Obama agenda. And essentially, the idea that he's back on the campaign trail is going to remind a lot of Republicans of the consequences of giving Democrats in Washington back the power and therefore what it's like under the status quo. So therefore, I think this is a great thing that he's out there. And if you notice very carefully, Obama's only visiting what I would call Democratic-friendly territory, which in California, New York, and Ohio. I promise you, I'd love him to go to Montana. I'd love him to go to North Dakota because then I know that the Republican will win that Senate race.
What do you think about that, Robin?
Today was actually a Republican stronghold, the specific district that he was in, and they laid out a very clear plan that he does plan on going to those because he said himself in the speech today, we have to fight for every single vote because what we did in 2016 obviously didn't work.
Robin, let's be honest. Heidi Heitkamp does not want President Obama outside of fundraising in North Dakota. John Tester has already said, please do not come to my state. I'm just saying in a lot of the key races, you're not going to see Obama. This is all about Obama and his legacy and his ability to influence the Democratic Party, and that's it.